Every night, my dog stares at the same corner of my room, growling like something is there. I thought it was nothing until last night. The corner growled back. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe and like. It helps me create more horror stories for you. I used to think my apartment was normal, quiet, predictable, safe. Then I got Max, my golden retriever, and that illusion slowly unraveled. Max was the perfect dog, friendly, energetic, and loyal. The first week was bliss, long walks, sloppy greetings, and cuddles on the couch. But the second week, I noticed something strange. He started staring, not at me, not at the window. He stared at the far corner of my living room, the one behind the couch where the shadows pooled. At first, I shrugged it off. Maybe he saw a fly or some reflection in the dark. Maybe he just preferred that corner for some reason. But then he growled. It was low, almost imperceptible at first, vibrating in the air, like a distant warning. Max had never growled at anyone, not the mailman, not my friends, not even the neighbor's cat that used to sneak onto my balcony. Only at that corner. I laughed nervously. Max, it's nothing, buddy, I said, kneeling to pet him. His fur bristled, his growl deepened, and his eyes never left the corner. My stomach twisted. Something about the intensity of his gaze made me question my own senses. That night, sleep was impossible. Every creak of the floor, every hum of the refrigerator, sounded magnified. Shadows stretched across the walls like they were reaching toward me. I kept glancing at the corner, half expecting. I didn't know what. By the third night, Max's behavior escalated. He wouldn't sit anywhere but near me, growling constantly, pacing, ears pricked, eyes locked on that same corner. Even when I tried to distract him with toys or treats, he ignored everything, his gaze fixed, body tense. I started noticing subtle things myself. Small scratches on the hardwood floor near the corner, faint dents in the wall that hadn't been there before. A chill in the air that I couldn't explain, like the temperature itself, avoided that corner. I began to record it. My phone set on the coffee table, capturing Max's vigilant stance hour after hour. At first, the footage showed nothing unusual. Just Max, sitting and staring. But in the middle of the night, I'd hear a soft sound scraping, like fingernails dragging along wood. I played the video back, listening with headphones. At 2:47 a.m., I heard a growl, not Max's, a low, throaty sound that vibrated in the room, coming from the corner itself. My heart pounded in my chest. I froze. I wanted to convince myself I was imagining it. It's probably some echo. Or rodents, I whispered aloud, even though the apartment was on the third floor, and rodents had never been an issue. Max growled louder, his fur bristling. It was then I realized whatever was making that sound, it wasn't friendly. I tried rational explanations, stress, lack of sleep, maybe even post-vacation paranoia, but the more I tried to convince myself, the more evidence piled up. Objects subtly moved when I wasn't looking. A book tipped over near the corner once, seemingly of its own accord. I chalked it up to accident, until I noticed it wasn't in the same place I left it. One evening I decided to face the corner. I crouched near it with Max by my side, flashlight in hand. The light swept across the walls, the floor, the furniture, everything ordinary. But Max's growl didn't stop. It grew louder, sharper, angrier, like a warning I didn't fully understand. Then, I saw it, a shadow not Max's, not mine, stretching along the wall in the corner. It wasn't just darkness. It moved, a subtle sway, like a figure waiting, breathing, watching. I froze. The hair on my arms stood on end. My mouth went dry. Max barked sharply, teeth bared. The shadow recoiled slightly, as if acknowledging him. I stumbled backward, nearly dropping my flashlight. That was when the growl returned. Not Max's alone, but layered. There was something else. Something unseen, somewhere in the room. It echoed through the walls and floorboards, synchronized with Max's own warning. Sleep was impossible that night. I huddled on the couch with Max pressed against my chest, listening. Every tiny sound, a creak, a sigh of the apartment settling, a distant car horn set me on edge. But that corner was alive, and I knew it. Days passed, and the entity, or whatever it was, remained. Max never left the corner of his vision. I couldn't look directly at it without feeling my stomach turn. I started avoiding that side of the living room, rearranging furniture, keeping the light on constantly. I tried talking to friends. Max is just being a dog, I'd say. Dogs see things we don't. But even as I said it, I felt guilty, because I knew they wouldn't understand. And deep down, I knew Max was right. He was seeing something I couldn't or maybe didn't want to. Then came the scratching dot. It started faintly, like a fingernail across wood, coming from the corner while I was in the kitchen. I froze, holding my breath, watching Max through the living room doorway. He sat rigid, hackles raised, growling low and steady. I felt my skin crawl. I wanted to leave. I wanted to run out, call a friend, even sleep at a hotel. But something kept me there: curiosity, fear, or perhaps the stubborn need to see it for myself. I turned slowly, inching toward the corner. The scratching stopped. My flashlight flickered, and I swear the shadow twitched. Then, in a moment that will haunt me forever, a growl, not Max's, hollow, guttural sound that seemed to come from nowhere, filling the apartment with its menace. I froze. My heart pounded in my throat. My hands trembled as I gripped the flashlight, sweat beading on my forehead. Max barked again, fur raised, teeth bared. The sound of the other growl continued, perfectly in sync. Echoing through the room, I stumbled backward, tripping over the rug. The shadow in the corner didn't move. Vor did it. My mind screamed in confusion. I could see the darkness shift ever so slightly, edges rippling unnaturally. I realized, with a sick twist in my stomach, the corner wasn't empty. Something had been there all along, waiting, watching, and now it was aware that I had noticed. I backed into the kitchen, gripping Max's collar. His growl continued, low and warning, as the scratching returned, this time sharper, louder, as if it were testing its reach, daring me to move. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed on the couch with Max pressed against me, staring at the corner, listening to the soft, deliberate scratching and the growl that wasn't his. I knew one thing: I wasn't alone anymore, and whatever was in that corner wasn't planning on leaving. By the time the sun rose, I realized the truth. Max isn't just a dog. He's my warning system. In the corner, he's alive. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. Max stayed pressed against me, his growls low and continuous, his eyes never leaving the corner. I tried to convince myself it was my imagination. After all, shadows play tricks in dim light. Dogs see strange things, but deep down, I knew better. Max wasn't just reacting. He was warning me. By morning, I was exhausted, twitchy, on edge. Every corner, every hallway, every doorway seemed alive, pulsing with invisible presence. The scratching and low growls hadn't stopped. Even the walls felt different, as if the apartment itself had changed overnight. I couldn't escape the sense that the thing in the corner was no longer confined there. I set up cameras in the living room, kitchen, and bedroom. Maybe if I recorded it, I could finally prove to myself and anyone else that I wasn't losing my mind. The first 2 nights yielded nothing. The footage showed Max sitting, staring, growling at nothing. That was it. Silent, empty frames, no movement, no shadow. And yet, every night, the growl returned. On the 3rd night, something changed. I was in the kitchen, pouring water, when I heard it, a low, rasping growl that wasn't Max's, emanating from the hallway behind me. I spun around. The hallway was empty. My flashlight beam swept over every corner. Nothing. And yet, the growl continued, closer, sharper, filled with intent. Max bolted past me, fur bristled, hackles high, barking furiously at the empty hallway. I froze, heart hammering. He wasn't just reacting. He was attacking the air, lunging at something I couldn't see. I swallowed my fear, gripping my flashlight, and followed him. That's when I noticed it. The shadow from the corner wasn't staying put. Every time I turned, it seemed to inch forward, stretching along walls, slithering just beyond the edge of my vision. It moved like liquid darkness, impossible to pin down, yet undeniably present. I tried to confront it. "What do you want?" I whispered, voice shaking. The air grew colder instantly. My breath misted in the dim light. Max growled, low, warning. Then, the low growl I had heard before answered. It wasn't words, but it filled the room with a terrible sense of intent, a promise of pain. The shadow wasn't alone. I realized this slowly, horrifically, as I glanced at every reflective surface in my apartment. Mirrors, windows, even the TV screen. Faint distortions appeared. Faces, figures, shapes moving behind the glass, mimicking Max's growls, synchronized perfectly. The entity was learning, adapting, watching me. I tried to rationalize. It's just a trick of light, a coincidence. But then the scratching started again, louder, closer, right behind me. I spun around. Nothing. Max leaped forward, barking at the empty space. That's when I saw it clearly, just for a second. The edges of a humanoid shape, stretching unnaturally, black as ink, with a glint where teeth should be. I stumbled backward, my flashlight flickering. The thing didn't move like a normal being. It flowed, warped, impossible geometry. My brain tried to comprehend it. Could I really be seeing it? Or was my mind fracturing under fear? The growl grew louder, echoing through the apartment. Not Max's alone, but layered, as though multiple entities were now present, following me, syncing with him. Every step I took, every corner I passed, the growl mirrored, multiplied, shadowing my movements. I realized with horror, it wasn't bound to the corner anymore. It was following me. By the next evening, I had become hyper-aware of every space. I didn't sit near corners. I avoided shadows. I checked the walls and ceilings constantly. Max wouldn't leave my side. And still, the growls persisted, rhythmic, patient, calculating. I tried talking to friends. "It's probably stress," I said. "Maybe Max is sensing something minor, like a draft or a mouse." But I couldn't convince myself. I hadn't slept properly in 4 nights. The air felt heavy, thick with anticipation, like every surface was listening. Then, last night, the entity escalated. I was in the bathroom, brushing my teeth, when I saw it in the reflection of the mirror. Just a ripple, a dark smear, along the edge of the glass. I froze. Max's growl came from behind me, directed at the corner of the bathroom. But there was nothing there. The entity was learning to separate its form from the original corner. It was adapting, testing its reach, expanding its territory. I could feel it in the room, a pressure, a pulse, a malicious awareness. I ran to the living room, desperate, flashlight trembling in my hand. The shadow was there, or rather, its presence was everywhere: the walls, the floor, even the faint reflection in the TV screen. It moved unnaturally, fluidly, never fully corporeal, yet undeniably intelligent. Max lunged at it, barking and growling, but he was powerless to stop it. I realized the truth, the cold, horrifying truth. This thing didn't need to stay in the corner. It had been using the corner as bait, as a place to test my reactions. And now, it had learned. It could follow me. It could mimic sounds, movements, even Max's growls. I backed into the kitchen, frantically grabbing my phone. I started recording everything. If this escalated, I needed proof, anything to show the world that this wasn't my imagination. That night, As I typed frantic messages I couldn't send, Max growled, low, sharp, insistent. The growl I had been hearing since the beginning returned, but now I knew exactly what it meant. It was close. Too close. From the living room, I heard furniture creak. The temperature dropped suddenly. The lights flickered. The shadow wasn't contained to the corner anymore. It was testing me, circling me, learning my routine, waiting for the perfect moment to act. I could feel it in every reflection, every dark space. I could feel it behind me, breathing, patient. The growl continued, synchronized with Max, and sometimes layered over Itin, impossible, otherworldly mimicry that made my skin crawl. I spent the rest of the night trapped on the couch, flashlight shaking in my hands. Max curled against me, growling incessantly. I knew one thing for certain. The entity was no longer confined to the corner. It was following me. And soon, it would step out fully, confront me, and reveal what it truly was by dawn. I felt hollowed out, exhausted, terrified. Max's eyes never left the corner where it had started, but the apartment no longer felt safe anywhere. The entity had learned. It was patient. It was calculating. And I realized with dread, this was far from over. I couldn't do it anymore. I couldn't live in that apartment like a prisoner, afraid to turn around, afraid of every shadow. Max growled constantly, pacing, restless, sensing what I could barely comprehend. Something wasn't just in the corner anymore. It was everywhere, patient, intelligent, and hungry for attention. Or maybe something worse. I decided I had to face it. I armed myself with nothing but a flashlight, my phone, and sheer, desperate courage. Max stayed close, fur bristled, growling low and warning, every instinct alert. My hands shook, my heart hammered in my chest, but I had to confront whatever this was. At midnight, the apartment fell completely silent. Too silent. I could hear my own breath, feel my pulse in my ears. The air thickened, cold and damp, as though it were pressing against me. Max crouched low, tail stiff, eyes fixed on the far corner, though now, it didn't matter which corner. I could feel the presence everywhere. The growl returned, deep, throaty, unnatural. Not Max's, not mine. It echoed around the room, bouncing off the walls, coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. I swung the flashlight toward the living room. Nothing. Then I saw it. The shadow had stepped forward, or maybe it had been everywhere already, and now it chose to reveal itself. Its form was humanoid, but wrong stretched, rippling, fluid, like black oil suspended in the air. Its edges shimmered, impossibly smooth and sharp at the same time. A faint glint where teeth should be caught. The light. And then, it smiled. I froze. Max barked furiously, leaping forward, but he was stopped mid-air, as if something invisible held him back. The shadow's growl merged with Max's, a grotesque mimicry that made my skin crawl. It was learning, adapting, feeding off our fear. I grabbed a chair and swung it blindly, hitting. Nothing? Air? My hand tingled where it had passed through the shadow, a chill that burned and numbed simultaneously. The entity moved impossibly, slipping around the room, twisting through corners, bouncing off walls like water. I ran toward the door, locked, my heart hammered. Max growled, teeth bared, hackles raised, lunging at something invisible that I could only feel. The shadow hovered near the ceiling, stretching, elongating, dripping darkness toward me like liquid ink. I screamed. The growl intensified, echoing in every direction. It was close now, impossibly close, its presence overwhelming, filling every space I could see and imagine. My flashlight flickered, and in the brief flashes, I saw multiple forms distorted, stretching shadows circling me. I backed into the kitchen, grabbing knives, a chair, anything to protect myself. Max stayed by my side, growling, snapping, refusing to leave my heels. And then I noticed it. The shadow wasn't moving randomly. It was hurting me, guiding me, like a predator forcing prey into a trap. I realized, with sick dread, that it had been planning this. Every night, every growl, every scratch it, was learning me, learning my routine, my fears, my patterns. And now, it wanted something from me. I tried calling 911, no signal. My phone flickered, battery draining unnaturally fast, as if the entity itself sapped the energy around it. My apartment lights blinked, and in the darkness, I could see it clearly again. Black, featureless, humanoid, fluid. Teeth glinting, grin wide, watching. Max barked, lunged, and collided with it. For a moment, I thought he had attacked it, but nothing happened. He hit air. The shadow recoiled slightly, then expanded, stretching across the walls like smoke, filling the entire living room. I ran to the hallway, heart racing, hoping for an exit. The shadow followed, not behind me, not in front of me, everywhere at once. My own reflection in the hallway mirror twisted grotesquely, teeth grinning back at me, eyes black. I stumbled backward, tripping over a rug, barely keeping my grip on the flashlight. Then came the whispering, low, incomprehensible words that slithered around the room. Not a voice I could understand, but filled with threat, menace, and hunger. Max growled louder than ever, hair standing on end, snapping at empty air. I felt the breath of the shadow on my neck, icy, real, and almost tactile. I stumbled into the bedroom, slamming the door. I locked it, pushed a chair against it, holding my breath. Max sat on the bed, growling, ears pricked, staring at the corner. But the corner wasn't the problem anymore. I could feel it behind me, in the closet, under the bed, in the walls. The entity had learned how to spread, how to exist beyond the corner it had once claimed. Then, it spoke, or rather, I understood it. A low, guttural growl, perfectly mimicking Max, repeated over and over. I realized the horrifying truth. It could copy sounds, manipulate perception, and anticipate my every move. I was trapped, completely at its mercy. I grabbed my phone and started recording, pointing the camera toward the corner, toward the walls, toward Max. If this was my last night, I needed proof. The shadow recoiled, as if aware, then flowed fluidly across the room, expanding, closing in, stretching impossibly toward me. Max barked again. The shadow hesitated, then advanced in sudden, impossible speed. I screamed, swinging the flashlight wildly. The beam caught its form briefly, humanoid, stretched, inky grin wide, teeth sharp, and then, nothing. I don't know how long I sat there on the bed, trembling, Max at my side, listening to the silence. The shadows had receded, for now. The growls had stopped. I thought it was over. I was wrong. When I dared to look at the corner again, the darkness shimmered. A familiar, terrifying grin stretched across its face. And in that instant, I understood the truth. It wasn't bound by the corner anymore. It wasn't bound by the apartment. It had followed me everywhere I went, learning, waiting, patient. And as I type this now, Max is growling again. The sound isn't coming from him alone. Somewhere in the shadows, somewhere just beyond my sight. The growl is there, watching, learning, waiting. I don't know how to stop it. I only know that it has claimed me, and the corner was only the beginning.